G'day and welcome to part 21 of the CB750 restoration. And I'm drinking tea out of a Santa Claus mug. Not my favourite thing, that size of mug, but at the end of the day, the others are all in the dishwasher. Right, so in this one, we've pretty much got the bike finished except for front forks and wheels and exhaust. So the engine's all sitting in there. This chapter is all about carburetors, and I've spent a lot of time sort of going through what was necessary because they weren't just blocked, they were absolutely completely unusable. Even when I got them back from the hydroblast, there's still lots of blockages which we had to get rid of. And we're now at the point where we're ready to put petrol in and start it. I'm not going to do it today though because I've been out all morning with Dave. We went to antique motorcycle place in Cheltenham, that was great, and back to Classic Style in Seaford where the 750 came from to have a look at a couple of bikes there. Dave found one he kind of fell in love with, and we also had a look at another little cafe racer, unfinished project build which I'm considering at the moment. So let me know if you want me to get into videos on that. I'm sure I'll do it, but if you really don't want to see much on that, that's all good. And we've also got the car stuff to finish as well, but in the dead of winter I like those little jobs. So we're moving very briskly with the 750. Once I can establish the motor's in good condition and it's all working the way it's supposed to, it really is on the home straight after that. So I hope you enjoy. Right, a dirty old computer which has a fresh installed Windows XP on it. These things can be found in rubbish piles, although actually vintage computers, which this isn't quite vintage, but old computers are getting harder to find because people are recycling them more and picking things up off garbage piles and selling them on eBay and this sort of thing. Now the purpose of this is I've got the video footage of pulling the carburetors apart, and the hope is that this thing's powerful enough. It's only an old XP 2600, I think. It's from a long time ago. But I don't know if it's going to run the video footage. It needs something a little bit more powerful perhaps, but we'll give it a go. Right. Carburetor parts. We're going to put these together today. Here's a small selection of them. Which is all back from the plater, obviously, and it's all very straightforward, even though it looks a bit confusing. Some of it is confusing as in which way these sorts of parts go. That is a choke lever which should swivel, which doesn't, so we've got to free that up. The bowls and carburetor drains and the lids, I gave them a quick polish. They're not great, but they'll do for now. There's only two sizes of screws really. These short ones which go in the lids and the accelerator pump, and the longer ones which go in the bowls. They've all been cleaned as we've already discussed. The screws here for the girdle and our rebuild kits and floats with pins. This murky thinner, and you can see that was dead clean when I put in last night. In here are the emulsion tubes and jets, which were spotless on the outside but still had grunge on the inside. And so I've had to soak them in thinner with the idea of, what do you call it? Blowing them out and that sort of thing. That's finished uploading. I'm going to hang about, where'd it go? Down here. Let's just hope and pray that it runs. Yep, there you go. This format is not supported. Bugger. I never bother taking photographs when I'm disassembling something because quite often you'll just miss the part you need. Whereas if you're videotaping it or filming it on some device, in the fact that you turn it around and look at it and all that sort of stuff means you can often roll up on that crucial angle. Photographs I always find are pretty useless because you always just miss that bit you need. So in addition, as we've mentioned, we've got these bits here which have to all go back in. And there are the carburetor tops, and as spotless and clean and beautiful as they looked, you can see, I don't know if you can see in there, that thinner has gone a champagne colour. So some of the passages were actually quite dirty in those carburetors. Right, so every story has a beginning and an end. This is the beginning, and hopefully the end is a motorcycle that runs. A few things to note. We have one, I should turn these the other way, but to my left, to your right is number 1, 2, 3, 4. And as we said before, it's easy to determine where they all are positioned in terms of these accelerator pump discharge tubes, which go in between each one. Obviously nothing goes to the left of that, nothing goes to the right of this. The way the center two are determined is number 2 is different from number 3. Number 2 is where all the action is. That's the master. And this is the one that every other carburetor is tuned against. It's got a non-adjustable throttle slide. So when we balance them, we look at this one and then balance these three according to what that says. Now it's easy to determine this. This is the one that has all the levers and bits and pieces on it. The casting is completely different, and you can see there the difference when I'm talking about this sort of thing. So I think what we need to do is start with number 2. Number 2 and 3 actually, because some of the linkages are hard to get off and it's easier getting into number 3 than it is number 2. Now one of the biggest problems with this I've found in cleaning it out, and we've talked a little bit about this, emulsifiers or emulsion tubes if you like were completely blocked, and so we ended up getting them back from the hydroblaster in this sort of condition, in beautiful clean condition, but the internals were absolutely blocked, and you can see how grungy that thinner is. That's just what came out from the inside of these. Now when you do these, when you clean these, you soaked them, I had them overnight and just blew through there with compressed air, and all the snot that was in there just came out. They're completely clean inside. The same with the jet. You don't want to stick anything in the jet on the off chance that you elongate the hole or affect the size of the hole, thereby giving it uneven fuel metering across the 4 carburetors. These jets, I think I mentioned, I'm not sure, are 110s, 110, yeah. They can be richened up with 120s or whatever. I think the later or earlier bikes had the larger jets. These are sort of a little bit leaner. Now, one of the biggest problems with these, or cleaning these, I found, it was all grungy. We knew it was all dirty and horrible, but the problem I had was the slow circuit, the idle circuit if you like. And the nozzle's clear too, oddly enough, because fuel hadn't sat there. But it's in here that we had all the trouble. And the reason for that is, if I can find my pliers, what the heck have I done with them? Inside is this business. Let me get a thing to show you, but basically they weren't clear, they're completely blocked. And this one still is. And I don't know why. They've got little tiny holes along them. And I can see those two are sort of open, but it's not open there. These things, it's not immediately obvious, but they just press in. They're just knocked in, and you actually pull them out with a pair of pliers. I've made a really stupid mistake. The kit I bought is supposed to be the ultimate one. That's, you know, it's not really. There's a better kit for the same as what I paid for that, available on eBay. It's got all these slow jets and everything already in it. So let's have a look at this. One thing we can do is we can spray. I've got CarbuClean, but I haven't got any in with a nozzle on it. We can spray fluid into here and see that everything's sort of working properly. If I can't even jam that in there. I'm just going to try. If you can look at that nozzle there, it's giving a little spray of CRC, which is cool. Main circuit and slow circuit. This is the slow circuit here. That one, I believe. No, that's the slow circuit here, sorry. You can see it coming out there, and if I do that, it's coming out there, so we know that's working. And the compressed air just sort of reaffirms it, but this gives you a visual sort of look at it. And of course the main is this center one here, which will come out through where the main jet is. So if I block that off, out there, right? So we know that's all good, so I'm just going to clean this up and we'll start putting this thing back together. One more thing I forgot to mention, just make sure that you dig out any O-rings. There's an O-ring in here. Just make sure you get those out. Right, so I'm just going to pop a little bit of grease. I'm just using a Q-tip or a cotton bud, whatever you want to call it, just around in there, and on here as well. We don't need much, just a tiny bit to stop it boning up or whatever. I'm not using That was really smart, wasn't it? I'm not using Loctite on this. Just to make all its movement nice and fluid. Where does that go? That goes in. Oh, there's a spring. That looks great. That looks like it goes around that post there, I think. And that would go, no, I think it's, oh no, that's the right way. Hang on. Which way does it go? Oh, it goes, oh, I see. Hang on, no, it goes right around here. So what we've got to do is get that spring in there. It sits in there like that. And then goes right the way around. I think that's right. That's where we're going to put it anyway. Thrusty washer. And this funny clip, which should be a lot easier to put on now. You're kidding me, right? Did that just go straight in? Whoops, is it in properly? Hang about. That comes off and we're screwed. Right. Choke. Okay, so that's number 2. So I might have to put the emulsion tube in now, giving that a bit of a wipe down. This is the number 2, it's, as we said before, it's the only one that's not adjustable. I'm just bleeding that I didn't get that other kit. Like, I bought this one, that's a dog. It's nowhere near as good. Having said that, these parts do look in pretty good nick. And that is going to go, has this got a spring? Yes, it does have a spring. There's a little spring in there. And that is going to go in there. And that can just rest in there, waiting for the shaft. And that's as much as I'm going to do for now. I've just got to wait for that slow jet. And I can just knock that in. But anyway, we're going to put that to the side for now. So what we need, that is number 2. That's number 1. I need number 3 because it's not necessarily the way you're supposed to do it, but it's more to do with what was I going to say? The way I pulled it apart with the shaft and all that sort of stuff. So we need that. It's extraordinarily heavy accelerator spring, throttle spring, and we need this little spool here as well, which I've not finished cleaning up. Which should clean up well. You can see I'm just scratching gunk off there. So I'm just going to clean this stuff up. And we'll go about putting this back in here. The stiffness of this throttle. Another gentleman got a hold of me and he said, you know what, they're far too stiff. Jesus wept. It's got to be right. No, that can't be right. Hang on a second. It's just ridiculously stiff. Because that can't be, no, that's ridiculous. That can't be right. And that goes like that. So that's where it rests. So it's got to have a full wind on it to be like that. That is stupid stiff. Ooh, see what I mean? Ridiculous. That cannot be right. That's under so much friggin' duress. I don't like it. I don't like it at all, to be honest. I wonder if I can lighten that up a bit. Let me take it off and have a mess around with it. Because another bloke has said exactly the same thing. He thought it was stupid how stiff his was. He took his off based on the premise that there's a push-pull cable. Well, I've cut a piece out, that much, and bent it around. Hopefully it's good. I'm not sure. I don't know why they're so heavy. I think it would be something to do with vehicle emissions so that you don't keep fanning the throttle, it stays on consistently, thereby less fuel. I think that's probably got something to do with it. So let's see how this looks. And that is going to be so much better. I think that's going to be fine. So what I'm going to do, it's still got a bit of resistance on it. It's not completely slack, but by the time you put the other 4 carburetors on, I think it's going to, oh, we're going this way. Yeah, I think it's going to be alright. Let's try that for size. Just so much easier to hold than it was before. It was ludicrous. Unless I had it the wrong way, but I'm pretty damn sure I didn't. Still tight, but not like it was. Cool. Alright, so I think the next thing to do now would be to stick the choke rod in, which I didn't clean. And then we put his butterfly on, followed by some Loctite. Okay. That's probably too much. And we don't want these coming undone because that would spell catastrophe with the engine, which is the reason I'm Loctiting them in. Before we nip them up, we're just going to make sure they are properly, not going to bind or anything, so it just takes a few goes just to twist them around. And I'm pretty convinced that's alright. So we'll do the same to number 2, then we're going to sort of bang them together. And I've just got to really think about it because there's a bunch of springs and everything that goes. I think I forgot to put one in. Oh, hang on, that might be on number 2. That's on number 2. There's a spring there, but there's another one as well, I think. Maybe there's not. Maybe there's not. I just can't remember how they go. But they sort of mate together, and there's a tab there which goes between there, I think, or something to that effect. I need to have a look. This is horrendous. There's a spring that goes around there that's fine on the inside, and the other side of it goes around there, and then that has to sit in behind there. Then what you need to do is activate the choke rod and hold it while you put the butterfly on. So I'm just going to just do it like that. And I had a few shots at it and I failed, and it's a pain in the ass. This is where bits become, or things become a bit complicated, because when I took this apart I had to rotate that to clear here. If I pop that in, we move the choke out of the way and we can rotate that in, but then it stops, you see what I mean? And we're hitting that thing there, so maybe, although it's got to stay there, that's cast into it, maybe if we activate the choke and move that back and just fiddle fart around with it, we can get it in, which is something like that. Right, so there's a couple of things here. There's this longer fuel line. Actually, there's 3 of these. There's 2 shorts and a long one, which I'm assuming the short's go on the outside and the long one's in the center, which kind of adds up, I think. No idea. I've got these old bits of fuel line here, which we have to replace. There's a part of the choke which needs to marry up in there too, between that thing. And that spring, which I put on, is wrong because it has to go around there, I think. Yeah, I think that spring has to go around there. I think I was wrong doing that. So, oh god, it's not much fun, to be honest. I think that goes around there. I'm pretty sure that goes around in that little step. Whatever, I'm gonna have to figure that out. I've no idea. But there's also these little guys here which go in the center. These are the vents, the air vents. They sort of go inside or in between the carburetors here. So I need to make sure I've got those the right length, because once you put this together, you're knackered. Do you know what I mean? Like that's it. You don't want to pull it apart again. Particularly for something on account of a line. How about that? Is that going to fit better? That's too long. Alright then, so what I've got is I've got some pretty, I can probably reuse that, it's kind of pliable. I just don't want to, you know what I mean? So I've got this stuff, it's not very original. It's green, I bought it because it's my favourite colour. No, it's not, it's the only colour they had. So I might just dock off a slightly longer piece, say about there. Let's put that there for a minute. And then I'm going to know fairly well if that's going to be the right length, which that looks fairly dandy. So far as the other's concerned, this one here, this goes over the other side, and if we're sort of pretending this is all together, then that's probably a tiny bit short as well. That's as far together as they go, as far as I'm aware. Yes, that will be about as close as they're going to get. But these ones have clamps on, so these ones are for the accelerator pump. And we use the obligatory rubber grease, just because we don't want these to roll. Just a bit around each one. So when we chuck it in, it's going to slide in like a cock in a sock, just like that. Alright, so I'm assuming they're right. They don't seem awfully deep, those fuel line receptacles or holes or whatever, but what do? I'm going to pop him back in. And, pardon me, go for broke. So, let's have a look. Oh, Christ. Put him in first. Right. Okie dokie. Okay, now this is where I get lost because I've got to watch I don't want to rest it on these things either. I might just pop the bowls on if it looks like it's going to get too ominous. And just fiddle fart around until I get it right. It's that, you've got to get it, yeah, like that. Alright, so then, right, so I've got these tubes here first, little venti tubes, and they will push over. We've got the fuel line ones, which have a clamp on already, but they slide quite easily over there, so I'm not worried about that. God, these are assholes. Okay. Looking not too bad so far. This is so fiddly. This center spring is such a pain in the ass to get on because it has to go around. Here's this side, and if I drop it I'm knackered. It has to go around that arm there, and then that pushes in. That one there, it's just hanging on by a whisker. So this is just awful, this part of it. And I think I missed, I can't even see what I'm bloody doing. And I'll tell you what, I need it, no, it's gone back again. I need it, it goes over there. It goes over this one here, but it's going to be inclined to pop out, so I'm going to sort of put my finger over. I'll try and get this in. So that would be good. That's how it works. They're independent of those. So to stop it falling apart, maybe I should put the girdle on or something, or maybe just screw this up. Maybe that's the go. But that's look at this. The vent's off in the center. You know what? I'm going to just twist it and get it on that way. I don't want that to come off again because it was a real pain. Once I lock this shaft together, the carbs are kind of locked and they can't go anywhere. Although this will probably find a way. Right, so that looks reasonably good. We have 2 throttles. We have a bit of choke. Okay, so that's good. I'm reasonably happy with that. What else? I think I'm just going to start banging other carburetors on. That green tubing's hardly OE, but I'll tell you what, I don't mind it because you can kind of see through it, and it's got a bit of a fish tank look about it, but what do you do? So I got that ready, got that ready. I need another little joiner for the middle. So that's not looking too bad. All the chokes are good. The throttles are all good. So we'll just do the first one, and then we can sort of start fitting out. I'm worried about those slow jets. I'm bummed that I didn't get the right kit. So much, it's quite a bit nicer about a carburetor than fuel injection. It's just so cool, and you can see how far out of whack that is. That one there is far more open than this one. And it goes like that. That'll keep it all nice and true. And I'll put the girdle on the front. I've forgotten a spring. I've just got to put a spring across. Oh, there. I think there's like a fast idle thing or something. I haven't looked at it. Not sure. And then of course we just got to set it up. We'll put all the stuff down the bottom. Right. Well, I've got these idle jets. They've been soaking for some time. I'll just put. Oh no, I'll just. And I just need to see what they're like. I couldn't see through them before, but I still can't. So I'll try and clean them out. I'm just spewing about those other kits. These are welding tip files, and they're not filing at the end. They're not sort of serrated at the end. They're just, you know, straight. Unless it's smaller, unless it's this really, really small one, which is bigger than the one I just had. Hang on a minute. Where's the finest one I've got? That's really fine. Look at that one. Let's see if this guy will get in it. Holding these jets is ridiculously small. Just drawing a bit up. Really, really small. And you can just get the smallest welding tip cleaner into it, like that. This one I think is alright. That seems to flow a bit better. So it just goes on and on, you know. Knock that back in. That's all I need to go. And I'll throw a jet in, which is nice and clear. Let's see, come back. And what else? A needle and seat, I guess. These little mixture screws. Screw that down. I'm not convinced that's right actually. It's seated, half, 1, 1.5, so that's cool. And we need to put the needle and seat in with the float. Where's the float? Here it is. There's a new pin that goes with that, and we have to check the float level. So that would go over the tang, like that, so it hangs, and we just pop him in. And the pin, the float should have no resistance on it. It should just go up there. Now when you check the float level on these things, it's 12.5 millimeters, and you've got to make sure the pin tool isn't depressed. That will depress like that, so you've got to almost do it sideways, which I have no idea if you can see what the heck I'm doing, but it should be 12.5 millimeters from the bottom, and I still can't see. So from the highest point of the float, they're flat bottomed. That can go in a bit more. And we can achieve that by just bending that tongue up and then rechecking it. Where's my torch? I need my torch. It probably stuffs up your visibility though. and that's got to be resting, so that's 13. So I reckon that's right. And then we can pop the bum on. There's a couple of things that go in the bottom as a drain, which will, whoops, I need tea. I've been neglecting tea apparently. Yummy. It's a drain, yeah. A float bowl drain, so we need to pop that in. And that will have one of these remaining O-rings. O-rings. I'm just going to roll him up. Yep, just a spot, not a freaking litre like that. And that should seal up nicely. It should just find its way nicely. There's little dimples in there to catch the O-ring. Sometimes it is easier to hang the thing upside down and just plug it on. This little protrusion spigots, if you like, on those two. But those little keepers will hold it. They appear to anyway. It will then go over here. So that should be right. On the right trajectory. Right. That's one. Now just going to unblock those things and do the rest. What we will do now is I'll just chuck this girdle on, which sort of fits over like that, and those little pins have to sort of face through. Haven't got the accelerator pump in yet, and that's a problem because it's coming from Taiwan or something like that. I don't know where it's coming from. It's coming from a fair way, but it's far slower postage than USPS and England or British Post, and German for that matter. The German stuff that I've needed for the bikes is always got here, and around the same time it takes to bring parts in from the USA. So as we said before, number 2 is the master, which is this one here. You can see these three all have adjustments on them. That one I should have cleaned up better, but it's a bit late in the game for that. So I'm just going to pop the cover on there because we don't need it exposed, and we would benefit from putting this the right way because we had a momentary lapse in stupidity. So I'm just going to pop that on, and I haven't done a very good job polishing that, but we don't care because we just don't. So I'm going to pop that on. Any protection I can give the things I'm going to. Right, now if we look down here, I don't know if you can see too well. Can we see maybe on that angle? Is probably better. Number 2 is the master, and you can see that's almost shut. I'm not sure if you can see down there, but it is. These ones here aren't. That one's not. That's quite open. These ones look shut too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the idle, and so I can just fit in a drill bit or something. Here's one. Just make sure it's not burred, because I don't scratch anything. And at this angle, can you see better then? You need to tell me if you can't see. Not that I can do a damn thing about it, but I'm going to turn that up until that just goes in. Like that. Like a feeler gauge. That's as loose as a goose, so we need to shut this one off. And therefore offer some balance. So let's screw you down like this until we get exactly the same. Maybe a bit more. I'm tipping that's it there, just like adjusting valves. When you hold the grub screw and tighten the lock nut. And as with valves, you always recheck. You always recheck them, because if you're anything like me, you have to redo them again. And so once we've achieved this with all 4, Jesus, then we know they're kind of balanced. We just need to do fine tuning with the gauge. I always use an ear, when I was balancing carburetors, but I hadn't balanced 4. The most I've done is 3. And all I did from the other side was have vacuum line sitting down at the gap and listen to it. And you listen to the difference in pitch, if you know what I mean. Right, we're on the last one. And hopefully, hopefully it's all good. So there's our master again. Right, so now that's done. If we look down here, we can just knock our idle back down, and they should all look consistent. I can't see from here. I'm just looking now. That looks much better. Far better balanced than they were. So I think what we'll do is I'll put these lids on with some new gaskets, and we'll come back in a moment. So I can almost call this job done. They're all moving properly, which is rather cool. Our chokes are all moving properly, which is cool. The only thing that I don't like and that I'm worried about is this accelerator pump, and I'll show you why. So here's the diaphragm. It's been soaking in fuel for a week to try and soften it, and it is softer. It has rejuvenated it just a tiny bit, but not much. So what we need to do is figure how on earth we're going to get that to work. I might just try and pump a bit of CRC up there and see what happens. There's essentially a foot valve, but I just want to see if it distributes or not. It goes in there. Oh good, have a look at this. We're squirting there, we're squirting there, we're not squirting here. Neither of those two are squirting. Right, I thought I'd done this. This is the problem with using a camera, you keep forgetting what you're doing. This bottom part here, there's a small brass bung that holds that jet in, that sort of discharge there. I'm just trying to fish it out. I was going to make absolutely sure it's clear, which I thought I did, but obviously I didn't. Just going to cable tie the choke, and that might give us the room I need. So just give that a little knock. Like that. You look at these jets, you can barely see the hole. It's there. It corresponds with a slot which is cut out there but not on the other side. So we've got to put it in that way. This center one is a pain because it wants to go up and down that channel, and I don't want it to. I want it to go straight up there like that, and we can just tap it up into position with a screwdriver, just a very small jeweler's screwdriver. Oh geez, I'm already out. So right, that's the front, so we have to turn it around like that, and then that bung goes in. Now this is the only bowl you have to take off to access that, if you know what I mean. Beautiful. I don't know if you can see that. Go around this way a bit. Maybe that's a bit better. You aim them for the. I think I missed a bit with that one, but you're aiming for the hole when the choke's on. So that was a pain in the neck. I didn't enjoy that. Hard to get off too. So that's sorted. That was the last bit that I was a little bit dubious about, and I actually forgot. And then here it is here, and this is pretty well knackered, but there's not much I can do in the meantime. There we go. We'll just sit it down there. I don't know that this is going to do a damn thing, but what do you do? And that goes in there. I think, yes it does. Right, so there you go. All we need to do is get fuel line for down in there. It's slightly bigger. That's the vent for the bowls as part of the vehicle's emissions. Everything seems to be working well. I wanted to start the bike in this chapter, but there is so much involved with these carburetors and the cleaning of them, servicing and setting them up and that sort of thing. We still haven't set up the accelerator pump, which is down there, and it's determined by I don't know, this thing that thing there, and that adjustment is carried out by fiddling with this thing here. So right, a couple of things. I've gone ahead and put them on. Probably should have waited, but you know what, the camera's inside and I couldn't be bothered. I was on a roll, so I shouldn't have done that probably, but anyway. A couple of things to note. Airbox looks really, really dirty. That's only there temporarily to see if the carburetors are fitted up properly. These black insulators through here are notoriously hard to get on. These were quite hard, but at the end of the day, there's all sorts of things you can do with them. Some people say oil of wintergreen mixed with hot water. Some people say mixed with benzene. Some say thinners. Some probably even think if you do nude handstands in front of a police car, they will soften up. I haven't bothered doing any of that. All I've done is heat them up with a heat gun gently, just a little bit of heat, popped a bit of rubber grease around the inside of each end, and they just pop straight on, no problem. And they can be rotated to get the orientation right for the carburetors. Once I've done that, I put the clamps on, we're all good, right? The green fuel line looks a little bit ICU on this, particularly down there. Very useful down here to have clear stuff. I want to see as soon as I put fuel in this, it's going to leak everywhere. Should probably have bench tested these before I fitted them to the bike, but I just sort of thought, what the hell, I'm just going to do it. They're good for checking float level, so I can just pull these up, crack that little grub screw, and I can see where the float level is straight away with the clear tube, which is cool. That's what I wanted. What else is there? Alternator covers off. I was a little bit paranoid in the last chapter. You would have noticed I was talking about the engine being too stiff. I popped that off just to have a look. There's nowhere on this bike you can actually take the thing off to check it. There's a little bit of effort required first starting it with a Kickstarter, because obviously the rings are new and they're sort of sticky in the bores and all that sort of stuff, or at least they're hanging on a bit. Once it's run, that should all be good. It rotates beautifully. I'm very, very happy with that. That's for vehicle emissions. That's a vent that's plumbed up down in there somewhere. What else do I need to talk about? The header pipes are on. They're just temporary until we get something a little bit more substantial. The choke cable, which I haven't connected there, is a new accessory one. Very cheap, very, very nice. The only problem is it is upside down. So you can't actually take that out and reorient it the right way. It's always going to be upside down, given the flat on the thread down in here, and the flat on the shank of the shaft itself. For those who don't know, you can pull the thing on and you could, tighten that nut there, and it will create drag and leave the choke out. Some people think they have to hang on to them. I've read that a couple of times. So that being said, the airbox is coming up, as I mentioned before, but I'm not going to start this in this chapter because I've simply run out of time, I should say. I've made it very, very detailed. Lots of fuel line here. It's just slightly bigger than the other stuff. Pop it into a temporary fuel tank, and next chapter, all being well, you're going to hear the voice of this rather lovely CB750. So until then, thank you very, very much for watching, and enjoy your classic, and I will see you around. Bye-bye.